today. My name is Pamela Hanson. I am the Director of Outreach here at Better Business Bureau. I am very excited today to introduce Don Hicks. He is going to be talking about labor supply shortages, which is a huge topic right now. Don Hicks is the HR and risk management consultant with Shakley, and Shakley has been a long-time partner with us for almost 30 years. Don is a professional in helping businesses grow. He's worked with Better Business Bureau several times. He also provides businesses with unique strategies and insight which help in operating their business and competitive organizations more competitively and strategically. Don has over 25 years of business expertise, earned his master's from Villanova University, and served in the United States Marine Corps. He enjoys watching movies, reading, and all types of sports. So please join me in welcoming Don Hicks with Shakley for our presentation today. And if you have any questions throughout today's presentation, please feel free to type them in the chat box. Thank you, Don.
Very good. Thank you, Pam. And thank you, everyone, for joining me today for such an important topic. So we are proud to be partnering with the BBB and such a gracious introduction. So thank you, Pam. So today, labor supply shortages. You may think that we're going to talk about the federal unemployment ending and things like that in regards to labor supply shortages, and we're not talking about that. We're going to dive a little bit deeper based on some of the research that I've done and the clients that I work with and what's causing this labor supply shortages. So I'm going to warn you, I'm going to challenge your thinking a little bit today. I'm going to try to transform your thinking and explain based on the research that I've done and the clients that I work with of what's causing what most businesses, almost every business is facing today is finding talent, recruiting. So before we get into that, I'm going to share a real quick story with you. It's a true story. About 20 years ago, my wife and I found a resort that's about 2 hours from Cleveland, and it's one of those resorts that has everything within the resort. It has the restaurants, the hotel, there's some gambling that you can do, slot machines, pool, and you don't have to ever leave the resort. And we just fell in love with it. For those weekends, we just wanted to get away and do something fun. So in 2004, at this resort, we came across a band, a live band in 2004. And there's a band called Occasional Rain. And they played every Saturday, I shouldn't say every Saturday, but on some Saturdays every month, they would play 60s music and 70s music and 80s music, the music that we loved. And it was right on the top level. And we would go and we fell in love with this band. And it had about 5 members of the band. It had the lead singer, had someone playing the guitar, and the piano and the drums and all of this. And we just fell in love with them. This was 2004. 2005, whenever Occasional Rain showed up, we would go see the band. And we saw them so often, it felt like we knew them. We knew we didn't, but we felt like we did. So 2005, we would go see this band. 2006, we would go see this band. 2007, we were going to see this band. In 2008, I remember it was a Saturday, and my wife and I are walking through this resort, and you come across the bar area, then there's slot machines, and there was a sign that said, "Tonight, surprise, guess who was playing? Occasional Rain." So my wife goes upstairs, it's about 10 o'clock at night, and on the stage was Occasional Rain getting set up to play. We were so excited. We've had a couple of drinks and feeling really good. We were gonna do some dancing, and this was such a surprise. So the band comes out and starts to play, and they're playing their music and they're sounding as good as ever, but something was off that night. And instead of 5 band members, there were 4 band members, and I couldn't figure out why. And my wife was standing just a couple of feet in front of me, dancing and having a good time, and there was smoke in the room, and the dance floor was packed, and I was standing back, and something was bothering me, and I couldn't figure out. So I go and I count the band members. 4 band members instead of 5. Remember I said 5, there was 4. But the music sounded just as good as when I heard them before. So I turned to the side and I was like, man, where's that 5th band member? Couldn't find him. I went to the other side. Look, 4 band members, but the band was sounding just as good as ever. So they got to a point of this particular song where there was a heavy saxophone solo part in this song. And the saxophone was playing, but I didn't see the saxophone player, right? I didn't see her. I heard the saxophone piece, but I didn't see the person playing it. And as I looked closer, I kept looking closer and I noticed something. The person playing the piano was playing the piano, and he was also using this, I don't know what you call it, this contraption, this technology that also came down off of a hook, and he would blow into it and it would give the sound of a saxophone. So he was playing 2 different instruments using technology. That reminded me, and this is 2008. Technology transformed, and when they could do the same job in 2008 with 4 band members instead of 5, using technology, that really sort of struck out to me as the labor market is changing using technology. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the evolution of labor and what's causing some of these labor supply shortages. Now, this is not going to be a college course, but I'm going to walk you through how labor evolved to where we are today. It is fundamentally important to understand how we got to this place so we can sort of understand how to deal with some of the challenges we're dealing with today. Because you have to study the past in order to define the future. Let me lower this thing. There you go. You have to study the past if you want to define the future. So let's walk through this. In the beginning, in the beginning of time, when you look at the labor market, and stay in there with me, this is not going to be boring. At the beginning, the economy was built on artisans and farmers and agriculture. There was no manufacturing. There was no economy that we have today. Then in the 1700s came the Industrial Revolution. This is when the factories started. This is when the economy that we sort of know of today sort of became prevalent. In the 1800s was the electricity revolution, the light bulb, powered steam locomotive expanding to the West. So we went from agricultural farming to manufacturing to electricity. And then everyone on this call remember the technology revolution in the 1990s. This evolution brought some challenges. And then particularly in 2020 with the pandemic, it exacerbated those challenges in my view. And we are still dealing with that because the pandemic brought on-demand work. And that is a challenge for most traditional businesses. Think Uber. Uber driver, Lyft driver is an on-demand type of work. And we're going to talk more about that. The pandemic also exposed that works offers, people wanted flexibility. They wanted flexibility in the jobs that they did, when they did them, and how they did them. And we're going to talk about that. And then freelance work. By the way, freelance work is different than gig work or independent contractors or entrepreneur. An entrepreneur can build a business, and even if that entrepreneur leaves or go on vacation, the business still runs. That is, in my definition, the definition of an entrepreneur. If the entrepreneur themselves is not in the business continues to function. Freelance is the only way work is done is that freelancer doing the work. Think of a lawyer, an accountant, any type of service professional. But what the pandemic exposed was people going to freelance work versus traditional 9-to-5 jobs. And the pandemic brought that on. And this is going to come full circle to what it means today. And then as we all know, as an example, staff shortages is completely impacting almost every business that I talk to. And I talk to probably 6 or 7 different businesses per week. So staff shortages because of this, and we're going to talk about what this means here next. But here's what's interesting, and I'm trying to get the market and businesses and business owners to understand when it comes to the candidates that you talk to and how you talk to them. And is the lifetime employment model. And that model started right around the 1800s. And what I mean by the lifetime employment model is where companies had a job, a worker did that job, and the job, because of that job that they did, they got salary, they got pay, they got benefits, they got pension. There's no more pensions around anymore. They got retirement. It was a lifetime employment model. It was employer and employee joining together, and that was a lifetime employment model. And that started right around the revolution in the 1800s. Here's what happened though. The lifetime employment model broke in the 1990s. And it broke because, in my opinion, and the statistics show this, is that employees started to realize, or perception started to feel that the company really didn't value their work. They didn't have a lot of security in the traditional model. And I think a lot of that is going on now. So how many of you have seen the movie? And by the way, if you have any questions during this presentation, put them in the chat and we'll discuss them. You don't have to hold them to the end. But how many of you have seen the movie War of the Worlds? War of the Worlds. And if you've seen that movie, at the beginning of that movie, the cause of the aliens, I'm not saying we have aliens, just follow me here. But the cause of that movie, that when the aliens, they were what? They were lying under the ground beneath the surface. And then one day they popped out and caused all this havoc. So I think what we're dealing with now is the pandemic caused and accelerated a set of underlying problems that was already there. Businesses and owners and companies just didn't realize it, but the pandemic accelerated it. And what were some of those problems? Companies do not and did not and still do not, in my view, focus on training and developing skill gaps for their employees. There's no formal training. There's very little training in regards to developing their skills or promoting their employees. And employees are not, they're getting frustrated by not having access to skills trainings, and they're getting it on their own. They realize that in some cases, not all, in some cases, they're not going to develop their skills in their current workplace. And that's what they're wanting and needing. And we're going to talk about that. I also saw, and I also see a problem in no business succession planning. And here's what I mean by that is employees started to leave during the pandemic because of retirements. Some people was like, you know what, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been doing this for 30 years. COVID is here. I don't want to get sick. I am just going to retire. And when those retirements started to happen in 2020 and early 2021, and even now, there was a huge gap not being filled. And there was no one else to succession or to succeed and fill that spot internally. So companies are now scrambling to try to hire externally. But when you try to hire externally, some employees don't want what you have to offer. And I like to be real frank about this and have this frank discussion. So there's a huge gap between retirements and filling, no training, and no competitive or no succession planning if someone were to retire, die, get sick, whatever the case may be. And we're trying to hire externally, and those external forces are not there. They're not listening because employees have choices, which we're going to talk about. Here's what employees now want. And I will encourage you, as you are thinking about this, as you're planning this, as you're recruiting, here's what employees want. And I talk to employees almost on a daily basis. The pandemic caused employees to realize that some, not all, okay, some, they realize they like working from home. It is as simple as that. They like the flexibility of working from home. You know, now some jobs, obviously, because of the nature of the job, you can't work from home. I understand. But if you can work from home and employees know that they can work from home and be just as productive, they may resist having to come back to an office. So employees want flexibility. That's what they want. The economy is moving to an on-demand model. Let's face it. Employees now have choices. They can drive for an Uber. They can drive for Lyft. They can drive for Amazon. You know, there are choices available to employees that may not include what your company has to offer. So there's a disconnect going on in the marketplace. Companies need these jobs to be filled, and employees don't see you as an alternative to what they can do on their own. And again, the pandemic has accelerated some of those challenges. Candidates simply have choices. And when you do your job postings, I want you to think about some of these mindsets that employees have. Employees simply have choices. So really take a step back and ask yourself, is offering flexibility part of my business plan? Can I offer that as a flexibility? How do I compete with on-demand freelance work if someone can earn just as much money as driving for Uber or driving for Amazon, where they have the flexibility and so forth and so on? What do you offer in your organization that competes with that and that's unique? If you have a business model that you are requiring your employees to come in, sit in an office from 9 to 5 and be stationary there for 9 to 5, that could be a challenge going forward. There are simply is as simple as that. Candidates now have choices. A lot of candidates, they're moving away from the traditional work model, and they're taking their skills and expertise and setting up their own business and setting up their own shop. So for example, I don't know if you're familiar with services like Fiverr, that's Fiverr, and there's a Upwork as an example. This is a marketplace, an on-site marketplace, where these professionals can set up their business and you hire them for graphic design, copywriting, customer service, virtual assistants, web design, web development, social media, resume write, you name it. And they can work from the comfort of their home, right online. And that is where a lot of employees are going to. They realize they have a skill, they have education, they have this profession, and they're taking it to the marketplace and setting up their own shops. So you're competing against that in the traditional model. So again, employees are getting an increased sense of income inequality as well. This is not meant to be any type of political statement whatsoever. But because of the pandemic, because of some of the unemployment assistance being cut off, employees need additional sources of income, and they are looking for alternatives to supplement and get some of that additional income. And again, there is a sense of personal responsibility for employees. Remember that lifetime employment contract, where employees used to look to the employer to take care of them. Their benefits, their pay, their retirement, that is going away. They no longer 100% look to the employer to take care of them. They're simply not. They may not tell you that, but I can tell you with almost 100% certainty, that's what employees are thinking. So you have to make sure that your job postings, you're talking to them, you're trying to recruit them, paying attention to your existing employees, and understanding what's important to them. Really understand. It may not be pay. It could be flexibility. So just really understand that, and realizing that employees can simply do a lot of the things that they enjoy doing online and have choices versus the traditional 9 to 5 job. So other contributors, you're right. I do not, the unemployment, the additional unemployment that happened, you know, at the beginning of the pandemic that is now ended or beginning to end. It ended in Ohio in June. That definitely played into this. I don't want to overlook that. So the additional unemployment did play into this. But I remember thinking about this in May, and I had employers tell me, Don, when the unemployment, the additional federal unemployment ends and the additional state unemployment in Ohio ends, is going to fix things, and is not fixing them. And I tried to say that in May, and I wanted to see if I would, and I'm not trying to be right. That's not what I'm trying to get at. But I looked to see, I was like, that's not going to solve it. There's something else going on. And employers, I ask you to really rethink and reshape what you offer, how you offer it, how you recruit, and what you offer your candidates. We're going to talk about that. The fear of COVID obviously plays a factor into this. I think COVID has made the situation worse, obviously, because we thought we were out of it and we realize now that we're not. So that's an additional challenge that employers have to deal with now that they didn't have to deal with even 3 months ago. So all of these things play a factor. And then obviously the cost of daycare. Those three things, the additional unemployment, COVID, and the cost of daycare, definitely has an impact on labor supply shortages. No doubt about it. But there's other things that's going on as well that employers, I don't think, are thinking about and reinventing their organization and rethinking how they recruit and what they talk about and what they offer. So,
Hey, Don, we have a question.
yeah, sure.
So I've heard from business owners say people just don't want to work anymore. When I look at your screen about what employees want, I think that there has to be a mindset shift with business owners. How do we help business owners make that mind shift?
Very good question. And it's you leading me into my next point. That's a very good question. The reason I went through the evolutionary model, remember the industrial and electrical and then the technology revolutions. The reason I went through that is we have been so conditioned as an economy and as society, the traditional way of sourcing candidates, recruiting candidates, and what we offer. We are simply used to an old and outdated model. So to answer your question, it's going to have to be a mind shift over time because I don't think that we're really have wrapped our brains around some of these challenges of what employees want and what organizations are used to doing. So it's going to consist of constant conversations, trying things, seeing what works, being open to change, and being open to doing things that you may not be used to doing. We've been doing things the same way for so long, and then this COVID thing shows up, and it was like, oh my God, everything is just completely different. So it's going to be a challenge. We're used to job posting, people apply, you interview, and they show up for work. That's not happening on a large scale. That's not happening. So business owners really need to get creative because what's happening, that question led me into this slide here, is there's a complete imbalance going on. The balance is what organizations need versus what employees are willing and wanting to do. And that is, if I had to just sum up this entire presentation, this is it. This is the challenge. That is a huge imbalance going on. And technology, remember the choices that I talked about. Employees simply have choices. So I believe my viewpoint is technology is advancing faster than what we can evolve in our organizations. And again, that leads to your question, is that we've been doing things and sourcing candidates and recruiting the exact same way, And the reason I know this is not theoretical. The reason I know that this is happening is I get alerts every morning from job postings on sites like Indeed and Monster and Career Builder and so forth. And every now and then I would scroll through the job postings and just see what companies are writing. And I look at one job posting, I look at two, I look at three, I look at number 4, and they all look the same. They all look the same. And what's happening is employees and your candidates, they have a remote control. And that remote control is their click, next, next. If you don't capture a recruit's attention in about 3 to 4 seconds, they're moving on. They're moving on. And then I look at the job postings and all of them look the same. My company is the greatest company ever known to man. We offer competitive salary, benefits, so forth and so on. Equal opportunity employer. Sign up now. Apply now. There's nothing unique about that. So I would encourage you to sit down with your team, sit down with your executives, and really have some hard conversations and answer one question. What makes your organization unique? Not necessarily different. What makes your organization unique? Do you offer flexibility? Is it in your business model? Do you offer the ability to work part-time from home and sometimes in the office? What kind of benefits are you offering? What kind of training programs do you offer to develop their skills? Do you have a pathway for frontline workers to become managers, and those managers to become directors, and those directors to become executives? Talk about that in your job postings. Talk about your training. Talk about management opportunities. Talk about leading a team. Talk about flexibility. Saying that you have competitive benefits, you pay a salary, you have a 401k is not enough. It's just not. It's simply not enough. We're shifting away from that. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, that worked. That is no longer effective. And all you have to do is look at the numbers. Employees are wanting more. They're wanting different. They're wanting unique. You have to grab their attention in 3 or 4 seconds when you do those job postings, because they're going to move on. And they're looking for that organization that's going to capture their attention. And I don't care if you are a 2-employee company. I don't care if you're a landscaping company or if you have 300 employees in a manufacturing facility. These principles apply to every size business, every single business. It doesn't matter. It no longer matters about the number of employees or the industry that you're in or any of that stuff. Every single size organization is having these challenges. I was talking to an organization that has 3,500 employees, and they're having the same challenges. I was just talking to a dry cleaners the other day with 3 employees. They're having the same challenges. So again, you need to, business owners, you really need to set aside 3-4 hours a day, get into a conference room and have some of these hard discussions and answer that question. Force each other to answer that question, what makes us unique? And if you don't have a solid answer to that you can go to market with, you're not setting yourself apart enough to where you can capture the imagination and what employees want. And when I say technology is advancing faster than we can evolve as organizations, I really do mean that. Meaning there's so much technology, there's so many choices for employees and employers, there's a huge imbalance going on. So the traditional ways, and we talked about this, is simply becoming obsolete. The days of putting a sign out in the front yard and saying, we're hiring, or doing the traditional job postings is becoming obsolete. It is almost, and maybe I shouldn't say this, it is almost not even worth the investment of these job postings. If you can't answer and go to market with why working for your organization is unique. It all circles back to that. If you can go to market, Monster and Career Builder and posting jobs online is absolutely effective. But man, if you can't grab the attention of a recruit with something tangible and specific and unique and different, they're going to just move on. Or you're going to start getting people applying to those positions that you need that's simply not qualified. That's what's happening. And you're wasting your time. You're going through these interviews, you're not finding the right candidate. Or what's happening is you will find the right candidate and they won't even show up for work. Why? Because employees have choices. There's nothing unique about what they may be walking into. So talking about unique and talking about hiring. So I hope that answers that question. If it doesn't, feel free to put it in the chat, and we can talk about this towards the end.
Yeah, and Don, she said, I love that you're talking about having a mind shift for business owners, encouraging us to be creative and offering for employees. But I do actually have another question that popped up.
Oh, sure.
So do you have any advice for a manufacturing company that has precision assembly roles and cannot be automated?
I know.
And it says we cannot find employees. We have increased our base wage significantly. We have Cadillac benefits, 401k match, and pension. We have career paths. We cover tuition at 100% equal to state schools, yet we cannot get employees through the door. Any advice for manufacturing employees?
Whoa, all the previous question was great, and this is fantastic question. Manufacturing, you're in a different ball game. You're playing a different ball game. And here's the reason I say that. Most manufacturing positions, you can't offer remote work, right? You need someone there's working on the floor, they're working on machines, they're working on assembly lines. They have to physically be there. Okay. So you can't offer some of these theories that I'm talking about if you're in the manufacturing industry. I get it. And it sounds like, based on the things that you're doing a lot of the right things. I'd be honest with you. Manufacturing, that's a great point, and I forgot to mention that. Manufacturing is a little bit more challenging when it comes to these principles. What I would recommend that you do is I would recommend, it sounds like you're doing all of the right things, but what I would do is, I think there may be, and maybe you've done this or you haven't, but if you haven't, I would recommend that you consider taking the time and do a survey. It can be anonymous to all of your employees, and ask them a few questions with the confidence, and give them the confidence that it's going to be anonymous, confidential. They don't even have to put their name on it, on a survey, a written survey, and ask them what they want. You may be surprised, because here's a challenge that I see a lot of businesses do. Businesses say employees want more pay, they want time off, they want this, they want that. We're doing the 401k, we're doing that. And those are good things. But then when they ask the employees and survey the employees, they get completely different answers back. And you will be shocked that what's important to employees. It may not be the 401k. It may not be necessarily the training. It could be something that you haven't even thought of. So what I would recommend is do a survey, ask 1, 2, 3 questions. What's important to you? If we could change something in the organization, what would it be? If we could offer something to you as an employee, what would it be? Get that data, put it into a spreadsheet, and analyze it. And then match it to what you're currently doing, and see if there are any disconnects or any gaps there. That's the first thing. And then now you would have what you're doing, which I think are fantastic things, but then you would have some data coming directly from the workforce, and see if there's anything missing to what you're doing versus what the employees actually want. You know, it could be more time off. It could be something. I have had organizations that had 10 employees, and seven of them wanted pet insurance. I'm not kidding. They wanted something as simple as pet insurance, We were able to get them pet insurance, and you wouldn't believe it, how happy they were. So that's a little bit of a quirky analogy, but you get my point. So I would encourage you to do that survey and compare it to what you're actually doing, and try to find a way to fill those gaps. And then if there are any gaps to what you're offering, use that as a recruiting tool. Say, listen, we are and I'm using an example. We are a company that offer pet insurance. You know, we are an organization that have donuts on Thursday. Everything. Use that to recruit. I'm telling you, it doesn't have to be something gigantic. It will get the attention of people that you're trying to recruit. Remember, they have that remote control, and they're fast forwarding to your job postings if you don't stand out. So use those quirky little things for your job postings. Okay, does that make sense? But do that survey if you haven't done it already, and see what the data shows. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah. I would start there.
Thanks, Don. Yeah, she said very helpful. We also had a comment that construction is very similar to manufacturing, yes, having similar problems.
Yep.
Heidi said that, wondering if childcare would be helpful for manufacturing, just like you were saying, you know, yes, you don't know what benefits would be helpful.
Yep.
I actually have a question for
sure.
myself. So what about business? You talked about training, and we talked about growth. Yep. So what if growth, and I'm sure this is similar for some of these, you know, construction, manufacturing. What if you can't grow up? What if there's not a way to become a manager because people have stayed at the business for so long? So how do you promote growth when it's not vertical?
Yeah. Some organizations are just flat by nature. And I'm not saying flat is a bad thing, meaning just how the business is structured, there's not much vertical opportunity just because of other factors, and nothing is wrong with that. You necessarily don't have to develop your employees, in my view, necessarily up, but they do want skills development. It doesn't necessarily have to be they're managing a team or they're becoming a director, but they do want to develop their skills. It may be giving them access to presentation skills, giving them access to customer service skills, giving access to interviewing, some of those soft skills that you will be surprised that employees want. They want to know how to do a spreadsheet, do a presentation, talk to a customer. So there are training, do some human resources work, manage other people, whatever the case may be. There are some soft skills training that employees want, and it makes them feel safe if they are developing their skills, even their soft skills. It doesn't necessarily have to be this huge promotion that I'm now going to be managing a team of 30. If you are in a flat organization, talk to your employees and say, listen, if you had access to developing your skills, what would it be? And training now in these days can be done online, self-paced, and there are some fantastic training courses out there online, and it's not very expensive. I mean, you can get access to a training course for about $75, you know, and we have vendors. If you have any, you know, if you want some suggestions, I'll be happy to just give you some recommendations. So I hope that answers your question. So yes, if you are in an organization that's structured to where you can move up and develop those skills, fill that need, fill that gap, awesome. If you're flat and don't, pay attention to some of those soft skills that employees really, really, really want, and they will appreciate it, and they will feel part of the organization. They will feel like they are developing their skill set, even in a small way. Okay.
Thank you. And we had one more come in.
Sure.
This is great. So the difficult thing is that these choices and options for labor are offered by big businesses and a level that small and medium-sized businesses can't keep up with.
Yeah.
We can't offshore large amounts of our operations and value chains abroad. Those jobs are very 9 to 5 reliant.
Yeah.
Small businesses have to pay extra to employees domestically for such jobs, and as such cannot offer the same incentives to high skilled labor in the same way that larger, medium, and big businesses can. For context, we sell technology products on the online marketplaces as well as offer services. We have just under 50 employees and offer a plethora of benefits, pay above prevailing wages, and have a hip and relaxed work environment. Still, finding labor has been incredibly difficult.
None of this stuff is easy. I'm and I'm going to talk about this towards the end of the presentation. By the way, we're going to talk about benefits just a little bit towards the end of the presentation as we get towards the end. But there is no 100% solution. It's just not. This is something we're going to have to incrementally get ourselves out of as employers and in the marketplace. I would encourage you to test it. Take incremental steps. Really know what your employees want. Again, get that data. I see more of a top-down approach. And what I mean by that is employers thinking what employees want. They're thinking more pay, bonuses, so forth and so on. And what I'm finding is that's not necessarily the case. So instead of the top-down approach, if you haven't, I'm going to go back to that survey. If you haven't surveyed your employees, if you haven't surveyed those that you interview, even those that turn you down and say, why did you turn us down? If you're not capturing that data and comparing that to what's going on, I think that may give you more insight into it. But again, yes, there's still going to be challenges, and sometimes there's not much you can do about it because of budget, you're dealing with a larger competitor. No doubt that larger competitors have more resources than the medium-sized businesses. You can't argue against that. But there are some incremental things that you can do once you understand what's important to your employees and those you're trying to recruit. And there really are some cost-effective things that you can do, which we've talked a little bit about today. So no, this is not going to be a quick, easy fix. Unfortunately, I don't have a silver bullet on this presentation, but what I'm attempting to do is transform the mindset so you can retool your organization, that you can talk about your uniqueness to the market and maybe come at it just a little bit different angle so you can incrementally improve as we go through this. But at the end of the day, employees have choices, and there's nothing you can do about that. It is the marketplace that we're dealing with right now. But again, there are some incremental things that you can sort of mitigate some of the challenges and some of the problems. But again, first know the data. So, okay. So I don't know if you know this person here. Always getting on to 45 till. So I'm going to wrap up here. I want to be completely respectful of your time, probably 10 more minutes. So I don't know if you know this person here, but his name is Ernest Shackleton. Again, I'm not going to give a college course, but this is important. Ernest Shackleton was an explorer in 1901, okay? And in 1901, his mission was to explore the Antarctic. So what he decided to do is he needed people to be part of his expedition. But you might be surprised of what Ernest Shackleton done. And by the way, Ernest Shackleton, his principles are still being taught in business schools and management schools to this day, over 120 years later. So he needed committed individuals to be part of this expedition. And this is the job posting. He took an ad out in the newspaper. This is his job posting. Men, and remember this was written in 1901, so I apologize, but men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger. By the way, safe return doubtful. However, honor, and recognition in case of success. That was his newspaper. That was this recruiting in the newspaper. He didn't sugarcoat it. He said that you're probably not going to return. I'm not going to pay a lot. It's going to be cold and it's going to be long. But he was able to recruit people for his organization. And here's the reason why he was able to recruit people to his team. He focused on those that were committed to his cause versus someone that just wanted wages or just wanted benefits. He focused on those that wanted the challenge, that wanted to be part of his mission. And he was able to recruit them. And by the way, he recruited the best of the best. And the reason why, his expedition got lost in the Antarctic for 21 months. 21 months, they were in the cold and dark, and he did not lose one single person. They all survived. But this is what we're doing now. We're giving signing bonuses. I think that's a mistake. I think it's a temporary fix, but not a long-term solution. Because what happens is businesses, because you're desperate, you're hiring the wrong candidates, which actually cause more problems in my view. So I understand why businesses are doing it. I'm just not a big fan because bad candidates are going to end up leaving your organization anyway. So just like Ernest Shackleton did, focus on what's important to the organization. Don't risk your business reputation, interacting with your customers, just for the sake of recruiting someone. I know it's tempting. I know you have to source those jobs. I get it. I'm not saying don't actively recruit. I'm just saying just make sure that you don't take a bad problem and make it worse. Okay. I would rather, again, as I talked about, there is no 100% solution. I would rather focus on finding the right candidate. It may take longer. It may be frustrating. It may be challenging, but man, having two of the most qualified candidates that fit your mission and buy into you are better than 10 that is sort of there and they're only there for the bonus. I am telling you, that is going to be a much longer term win for you versus just recruiting using bonuses. But again, as we talked about, there is no 100% solution. It really isn't. It is challenging. But I'm hoping that today will sort of get your mind thinking a little bit differently as we shift into this new economy, into this new market, into the new way of talking to our employees. And by the way, please, please, please don't forget your existing employees. There's so much focus on recruiting new employees that I think sometimes we're forgetting the people that are there with us already, and they're feeling a little bit neglected. You can't afford to lose those people that are there with you today. So don't forget about them as well. I'm beginning to see that a lot, and I talk to employees and they're feeling a little bit neglected. But again, this is not easy, but hopefully you will approach this a little bit differently, really find out what's important to you and what makes you unique in the marketplace, how you source your candidates, how you talk about them, do those surveys, get the data of what's important, not from your perspective, but from the perspective of your employees and your recruits, okay? So just rethink your hiring strategies. Really consider gig workers. I can tell you, I know manufacturing is a little bit more challenging. Some industries are just a little bit more challenging. Transportation, logistics, construction, manufacturing. There's some industries that are really more challenged than others. But if you have the opportunity to hire, I think a great market for some industries is stay-at-home moms. That is a huge source of, they want flexibility. They are very well educated. They typically have a lot of experience. So really go after and consider hiring gig workers and providing some flexibility, some stay-at-home moms that maybe can do things remotely, but have a tremendous amount of experience in the marketplace. Stand out from the competitors with customer service. And here's what I mean by that as we wrap up. With staff shortages, I am beginning to see a decrease in good customer service. And you can't afford that. And those companies that still pay attention to making sure that customer service is delivered, the phones are answered, the follow-up is done, you will stand out from your competitors when you focus on that. So please don't let your customer service or the engagement with your customers and your market go down just because you need workers. Really, really focus on that. You will stand out, because those businesses that don't pay attention to customer service, they're going to be hurting. So really pay attention to customer service. And real quick, there was a question about benefits. I think it was the manufacturing company and so forth. Really take a look at your benefits, and maybe you're doing some of this already, but really consider offering flexible hours for daycare if it's not part of your time off policies. There are benefits that you can offer as standalone for dependent care. So if daycare and some of those are issues, there are FSA or flexible spending account benefits that can help offset some of those costs. Offering flexible hours, offering remote work. So really take a look at your benefit packages and see, again, if it fits any gaps that you have with respect to what your employees actually want. So take a look at that. And then again, offer those specialized training, those skills development, nurturing your talent, and so forth. Online courses, really pay attention to that. We talked about the business succession planning and those bonuses. I'm a big fan of don't offer those up front, but offer those after. Say, listen, you're going to get a $500 bonus once you start and once you hit certain metrics. Don't offer it up front. Offer it after certain business metrics are met is a strategy I would do. Okay, and we talked about that. What's next? I'm thinking about doing a workshop on these. I could really spend 3 hours getting into the details of this. I'm trying to do a 45-minute summary, but as you can see, there's a lot here, and it's an evolving thing. I could talk about more benefits and retirement and recruiting, but I just don't have time. So I'm thinking about putting together a workshop, offering some online courses. If you're interested in something like that, let me know. I'm just curious if there's a market for it. If you need me to come out and talk to your organization or speak at any organizations, I'm open to that. Again, this is something that I'm passionate about, and I tell you, every month is changing. So I'm keeping on top of it, talking to business owners, talking to employees, talking to recruits to stay on top of it, to bring you the best analysis and research that I can. But listen, it's going to be a slog, and we're not out of it. But I do think some of these principles and mind shifts and transformations will put you in a better light 3, 4, 5, 6 months from now. I honestly believe that. By the way, if you're looking to read more about some of these topics, I would recommend a book by Jeff Wald. It was written in 2020 called The End of Jobs. That really is something that I would recommend that you take. It's about $19 or $15 on Amazon if you really want to understand what's happening with jobs. The end of jobs is a little bit, the name sounds scary, but it doesn't mean the end of jobs itself. It means a shifting of jobs and the shifting of recruiting and what's going on in the marketplace. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and that's my contact information there. So I said 40 minutes, and I had some really good questions that I appreciate. So it's about 5 minutes till. So thank you for your time. I really could spend another 2 hours on this, but I'm not. So really good questions. Pam, I will turn it back over to you. And if there are any other questions, I'll be more than happy to take those. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Yes, please feel free to type in your questions. Oh, it looks like we have, just thank you so much. Great seminar. Yes, thank you. This is such a timely topic. And for those who joined us today, this is recorded and I will be sending it out. Please feel free to share it with anyone else who might need this information. Again, Don's contact information is on the screen. You can also contact me. My email is Pam, P-A-M, @cleveland.bbb.org, and I can always get you connected with Don as well. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Great information. Yes, the positive feedback keeps coming. So thank you, Don.
I appreciate it. So thank you. So
Yes, thank you, everyone. And please reach out to us if you have any other questions, and I hope you enjoy your day.